Hi there, I'm Eric Wordweaver Sjerven, Gothi of the Ridgar folk here in East Texas, and I'd like to welcome you to the Raven's Call. This is a show where I ramble on about different heathen-related subjects, just kind of whatever strikes my fancy, sets my mind on fire at the time. We go everything from woo-woo stuff, to philosophical stuff, to theological stuff, to whatever. We go all over the place, so buckle up and join in for the ride. So, big UPG warning before this, as always. This is how I see the world. This is my interpretation on things based on my decades of research and experience, lots of experience. And so I'm not the end-all be-all of anything. I'm not an authority figure on it. I'm just a guy with a YouTube channel that likes to talk. And so I put this out there and you guys seem to enjoy it. Hopefully it's thought-provoking and conversation starting for you guys, and maybe will help inspire your own research and your own developments over time. But absolutely, I always recommend do your own research, do your own interpretations of things. Don't let other people tell you how to think. Figure it out for yourself. That's my take on things. Anyway, housekeeping stuff. All my contact information is down below. There's a mailing address if you want to mail anything in. I do show things on the channel as they're mailed in. Nobody's sent any fan mail in a while, but if you do, I'll make sure it shows up on the channel at some point and show it off as long as it's appropriate. And, email address, all that stuff's down below. So hit me up, contact me. I do use comments and questions and emails to build show ideas. And we go forth on these topics based a lot on what I find the audience is interested in hearing about or might need some more explaining on. So in today's video is definitely one of those that was born from a couple of comments. So, without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump into today's subject matter. Today's subject matter, we're going to revisit the subject of magic. And I know I've talked about some of the magic practices within Heathenry before, but I had a couple of comments come to me that really wanted to talk about the correlations with some of the other magical systems out there. And I use the quotation marks there because well, it'll make sense here in a minute. I'm not dogging the other systems by any means. It's the idea that they are other systems versus... It'll make sense in a minute. But the most recent comment or question that I had on this came from Wyatt Coverdale, who, if you guys don't know, was a guy that one of the individuals that had commented in one of Jesse's live streams over on Midgard Musings, and then been going back and forth with some questions and stuff there. So he commented on one of my videos, and this kind of got my brain turning on this one again. One I had intentions to come back and do anyway, because I've had people specifically ask me about correlations between heathenry and things like the Tao and whatnot. And so I wanted to kind of come back and play with this, but Wyatt was asking specifically about elemental magic and whether or not there's the presence of elemental magic within heathenry, working with earth, fire, wind, water, heart kind of stuff. Captain Planet. Dating myself there, sorry. So that's what we're going to go on this particular tangent for. It's going to get a little bit into the woo-woo side of things, but in general... I've done before, what's the place of magic within heathenry kind of stuff. And I definitely think there is a place for magic within heathenry. Within my stance on things, the way that I see things, the gods in the sacred space created the world in the profane space. They set everything into motion, created the order that we need to live, And people, on a microcosmic level, people will talk about, order and chaos, like, oh, I'm an anarchist and I'm all about chaos and we don't need imposed order, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, no, that's not the order I'm talking about. The order I'm talking about is things like nucleic forces and, photosynthesis and, things that we need in this world to survive. Gravity, things being kind of guided in motion, worlds held together through mantle and crust and gravitational forces and asteroid belts, all of this. This is the order I'm talking about, cosmic order. I'm not talking about like laying out the order of our society, although if you look at the Lay of Rig and Heimdall's involvement in that, the gods have influence on us in multiple different ways. So it's entirely possible they did have influence on our systems of government and whatnot through inspiration, etc., etc. But that's not what this video is about. We're talking about magic at this point. And the reason that I say all of this in preface is to give context for the fact that I know from my own experience that there are different ways that we interact with the worlds, with Midgard, with the world that the gods have given us and have created for us, and that we are in to live in. We use science to understand the order of the scene, the order of the things that we can comprehend, that we can measure. That's the realm of science. It is our understanding the world the gods gave us with the tools that they gave us to understand it. We codify things, we record things, we measure things, because this is the world the gods put into place, and science is a tool they gave us to understand it. Magic is a similar tool, but it is more for the unseen. It is a lot of it is dealing with the spiritual side of things, the spirit side of the world. There is a difference between spirituality and religion. We've talked about this before. Spirituality deals with the realm of the spirit. This all exists within the profane world. There's the physical plane and the spiritual plane within the profane world, within profane time and space. The veil exists not between, there is a veil between us and the gods, but it is a much different thing that we have to utilize ritual to be able to cross, etc., etc. It's a thing. And so with the spirit realm, the veil here is different. It's thinner and it's easier to pass across. There's more that we can do there. And there are the energies that are not easily measurable by science because we haven't figured them out yet. Doesn't mean that they won't eventually be understood by science and that a lot of magic and magical workings won't be codified and understood better through science, because there's a lot of things that science does now as just a matter of rote that at one point in time would have been conceived of as magic. Harnessing lightning to create light within a building, thousands of years ago would have been seen as witchcraft. Today, it's a light bulb. The magic box that I'm talking into that magically steals my image and records it in the ether and spirits it out to all of you so that you can see it. It's a magic mirror that I'm speaking to. And you guys get to see it and listen to the magic mirror speak to you. At one point in time, that's how it would have been perceived. So I do think that there's a lot of magic that just simply isn't understood yet on that level, and that we just haven't stumbled across the right thing with the developments of science to get it. Does that minimize the elements of magic? No, not at all. It simply means that magic is an intuitive understanding of things that science may later come to understand from a from that kind of attack, from that kind of logical perception. And there may be some things there that science just can't figure out, because there are more things on heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophies, quoth the bard. This is the realm of the spirit, the realm of the unseen. And it is folly for us to think that as humans, bound to the physical plane with the limited spiritual power that we have there, to think that we can fully understand that space. There are denizens of the spirit realm that understand it so much better. The realm of the Vatir is beyond our our full understanding. I mean, we can understand a good bit. We're like neighbors, but what happens in their world, we only have the benefit of an outsider looking in and being able to interact that way. So this is how I see magic and magic playing out within the world in general. I make these separations and I draw the parallels to spirituality and religion and etc. because there is an important distinction here that needs to be made. One of the problems that I run into a lot with kind of general neo-pagans, a lot of those that I would refer to as like Wicketry, is that there is they conflate religion and spirituality. They're not the same thing. They're not the same thing. There's a lot of people that are rebelling against the order of organized religion that was imposed upon them, largely through monotheistic religions, etc., etc. And they're in a rebellious phase, and they don't want anything that has form and function. They want the wild. They want the nature is my church, etc., etc. Yeah, absolutely, nature is your church. It is, the gods created it. There's a point to commune with the creation of the gods, but it's also the spirit realm. The veil is thinner in those wild places, and it's easier to contact the spirit realm in a lot of ways. So there's a kind of a disconnect. Again, keep in mind, this is my views on things, okay? I know other people are going to disagree with me on it, and that's fine, I get it. But nature, the green, as it were, is all part of the Vatir world. That is part of the profane space. This whole world and everything in it is part of the profane space. Living in harmony with that is a good thing, because this is the world in which we need to live. That is not the gods, all right? That's localized gods with a small g, I would say. Such as, a regional god that is like an alpha Vatir that is protecting a space or is over a space, the god of the forest, the god of the lake, the god of the river, the mountain, those kind of things. High-level Vatir that are localized gods, regionalized gods, which are not the same as the gods with the big G that created the worlds and are outside of profane time and space. These gods would exist within profane time and space, gods with a small g. So that's what I see a lot of neo-pagans in general get confused on. The idea that, this is religion. I mean, that spirituality can supplant religion. And it's like, it's a separate thing. It's not... it's hard to explain, because I see some hardcore recons who are very much on the religious side of things who get frustrated with spiritualists because the spiritualists don't see the value of the religious, and the religious don't see the value of the spiritualist. And meanwhile, I'm sitting here in the middle going, you guys aren't talking the same language. You're part of the same thing. The religious side of things is our interaction with the divine, with the sacred, with the gods, and the spiritual side of things, the magical side of things, is our interaction with the spiritual elements within the profane time and space. Both of these are necessary to be that whole hashtag happy, healthy, whole heathen. So that being said, magic itself is a system of understanding the unseen and interacting with the spirit and the unseen elements that occur within profane time and profane space that were given us by the gods. So it isn't one and the same. This is a creation of the gods, the same as science is a creation of the gods, the same as we are creation of the gods, the worlds are the creation of the gods. All of this is within the realm of their creation, and the creation does not supplant the creator. Anyway, that's a whole different tangent. I'll come back to that later maybe. But in essence, I've had people ask me, well, okay, so magic exists within the world. I mean, why can't you do this, that, or the other? And it's like, because it doesn't necessarily work like, you're not going to poof money into existence kind of thing. That's not it. It's using spiritual energy to guide outcomes and to... you guys know, I don't have to go into what magic is. It's not what this is. But the presence of things like elemental magic or the Tao or things like that, these are all observations that were made by separate cultures in different areas of the world as we know it. I, for one, maintain that the gods created all men and women and all creations on Midgard, because they didn't just create Midgard, they created everything. Everything, cosmos, cosmic style. You haven't seen my last video, big cosmic level is the level that I see the gods on. I don't think the gods created one race of man on the planet. I think that the gods created the world, and the different races on the planet figured out different ways to interpret the gods, and that there are a lot of crossovers between the polytheistic religions for a reason. Just saying. It's entirely possible we don't even know all the gods within the Aesir pantheon. We just know the ones that were written down and recorded, the ones that they told us about. There could be lesser gods within the pantheon that we don't know anything about because nobody recorded it. So they could have been more prevalent in other parts of the world, more present there, and therefore, known by different names, etc., etc. We know Odin by a million names, so why wouldn't another race know him by a different name? Anyway, again, neither here nor there. The point of all that side ramble is that I see these different systems of magic all being the same thing, it's different people in different parts of the world figuring out different ways to deal with the world in general, to understand it. That sounds dangerously universalist in its approach, but I think it's more along the lines of recognizing that from a subatomic particle level, there's nothing physically differentiating us from this cloud of protons, neutrons, and electrons, and that cloud of protons, neutrons, and electrons. It's a thing. Now, cultural context is a thing. It's the cultures understand things in a certain way, and that's, my view is based on my culture, and my culture is not like necessarily even any other heathen's culture. This is the culture that has developed around me over time, my understanding, my everything. This is my culture. And so to say that different heathens are all part of the same culture is, again, false kinship and the same kind of thing that I was saying as far as the assumptions being made in a lot of ways. I think that these different magical systems are like science. Just because the Swedes came up with this particular approach on subatomic physics does not mean that the Chinese can't use it, that the Americans can't use it, all to better their system. The magical system in and of itself, I find to be ultimately irrelevant as far as its cultural context. I think cultural context is important in understanding the mentality behind what gives birth to that particular approach. But I do think it's a lot of all in the same kind of thing. Why is cultural context important for why that works? Because it is microcosmic level. Magic, in a lot of ways, is microcosmic, whereas religion, we're dealing with the macrocosmic. With magic, we're dealing with regionalized stuff on a very specific level, because you're looking at the energies that flow through a certain area. You're looking at the energies as they work within plants, as they work within crystals, as they work within the East Texas area, or the UK, or in China, or in Japan. Things may flow a little bit differently because of regional elements, land masses, ley lines, all this stuff can impact. I mean, there's kind of a greater network of energies around the Earth, but just like water behaves differently in different parts of the world, these magical energies are going to behave differently. So yes, I do think that cultural context is important, but it doesn't mean that you can't utilize the base concepts behind it to understand the magical elements of your own region and cultural context. So I would say even in amongst that, trying to recreate Northern European magical elements in, say, arid West Texas, probably not going to work out exactly the way you want. Using the core ideas, the core mechanics, and then adjusting them to your environment, now you're onto something. That's that whole regionalization thing. So, okay, correlations with some of these regionalized ideas. You're talking about things like the Tao. Well, the Tao is a permeating force of everything. That's kind of a binding force of all. This correlates heavily with weird, but isn't exactly the same as far as conceptualizing goes, partially because the idea of weird was absent from that context when it was brought together. So there's going to be some interpretation differences, but there's some correlation there. I'm not an expert on the Tao, though, so I can't necessarily give you a full understanding of it as far as that goes. I do think there is some correlation to the idea of weird and luck and orlog as far as the causality elements of things go. But I also think that this ties together with some of the soul elements and the energies just in general that flow through the world. Kind of that, the river of energy, as it were, from which all these little eddies of energies pop up. And so, when you're looking at things like elemental magic, you're not going to find things specifically in the context of Northern European magic that necessarily correlate. Like if you're going through the lore for heathenry, you're probably not going to find a lot of references to elemental magic. I haven't. You can shift down a little bit further into the UK and into some of the Celtic sources, and you will find much more in relation to that because of kind of cultural approaches to things. This is kind of just the way they went about it. We see the same thing in scientific developments where, one area may be focused on this and one area may be focused on that. I mean, you can have the same physics giving birth to electricity and steam engines at the, it's the same physics. It's just how it's utilized and where the sources come from and what they decide to channel and how and direct it. You're having the same effect, but you're choosing to harness different energies to do it. It's a thing. You want to move a vehicle, you can do that through steam energy, you can do that through coal, you can do that through internal combustion in general, or, you can do that through, and I know I said coal and steam, but they're tied together, and that's a steam engine. I know. But you know what I'm getting at. I'm kind of rolling with it as it goes. Electric, blah. Okay, so you get the idea. Magic systems will vary based on kind of cultural influences and things like that, but it doesn't mean that the core elements can't be crossed over. Is there a place for elemental magic within heathenry? Sure, because if it helps you understand the world that the gods created for us, then yes, absolutely. Odin is a wanderer and a seeker of knowledge. He is a seeker of wisdom, so he wouldn't stand on cultural boundaries as far as understanding the magic and everything. He looks deep into the roots of Yggdrasil to take up the runes and these deep underlying elements, these deep underlying insights and meanings in the world. He turns to Freya, who's from a different tribe, and learns their magic in Sjerven. So you definitely see borrowing and cribbing from other cultures within the Aesir themselves. That means that I don't see any problem whatsoever with us sharing magical processes and things like that. So, is there a place for it? Yeah. Are you going to find a lot of sources for it? Probably not. You're probably not going to find anything. I haven't yet. I have found modern authors who have written on it to varying levels of whether or not I trust them or whether or not I feel their insights are valid. A lot of them not so much. But again, these are a lot of people that conflate religion and spirituality and are trying to supplant one with the other. And so I don't see that working. It's like there's just it's a thing. So as we build from this and we go forward, what does it mean? It means that just because you may be pulled to magical workings, just because you may be a little more on the witchy side of things, doesn't mean there's not a place for you in heathenry. It doesn't mean there's not good, valuable stuff that you can bring to a tribe, because you're going to be the people that understand poultices. You're going to be the people that understand herbal healing. You're going to be the ones that understand the secrets of the earth that the gods have granted us and can utilize those skills and magics to an end that help the tribe as a whole. You guys are incredibly valuable. Just like a blacksmith who knows how to pull metal from the earth and turn it into anything is extremely valuable to a tribe. Just like someone who knows how to step out onto fallow earth and turn it into sustenance for an entire tribe. Extremely valuable. Everybody has their skills, has their specialties. So yeah, absolutely. Good stuff. So, a lot of this was born out of, what are the correlations between this and that as far as heathenry goes. And so my gist is that it's not necessarily a correlation kind of thing. It is simply cultural context around how different systems view magic and view the unseen aspects and spiritual aspects of the world. Within heathenry, you're going to find mostly focus on, at least within the lore, spiritual workings like Seder and the kind of seer aspects of things, a lot of divination kind of things, sending out your hamr, your spirit self, to travel the world, etc., etc. All sorts of things like that. And it's going to vary from source to source. There are some sources that, like within one of the sagas, we speak of family gods, which I think are tied to their Disir, who come and wield the energies of storms in battle. So there's some elemental aspects there. But, an exact one-to-one correlation, you're probably not going to find that. Similarly, with the Tao, you can find some correlations, and then it's on to you to think about things outside the box with the understanding of cultural context and figure out how that plays in together. So, anyway, that's enough of this ramble today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, This is a little more on the woo-woo UPG side of things. I may lose some people over this, but again, this is just kind of how I see things. So thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. Hail to you all. May your hearth fires burn bright. Okay, well, I went digging trying to find the original question that led to this particular video idea, but I can't find it, so I'm going to roll with what I got and try and make better notes of who requests what in the future, so I give you guys shout outs and everything in these, because I like that. It makes a difference. It really does make a difference. All right, so we're live in 3, 2, 1. Let's jam.